Have you bought a car in the last few years or plan to buy a car soon? You need to watch this video. This is not a nostalgia piece about old cars were better. This is about why new cars are quietly shifting from symbols of freedom into tools of control. Financial control, data control, and eventually maybe even physical control over where you're allowed to drive and when. Because once you understand how modern cars are built, financed, and connected, you realize something uncomfortable. The biggest risk isn't just that they're expensive, it's that the more advanced your car is, the less it actually belongs to you. And by the end of this video, you'll see how a car you think you own can be remotely controlled by people you've never met for reasons you don't get to vote on. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you a twist that almost never makes it into the marketing. While car commercials keep selling you this movie about freedom and open roads, the fine print, the privacy policies, and the policy proposals tell a completely different story. So stay with me, because by the end, you'll not only understand why new cars feel so different from the machines we grew up with, you'll also see why that old, dumb car in your driveway might be one of the last real pieces of freedom you can still buy with 4 wheels and a title in your name. Let's start with the part everyone can feel right away, the money. New cars cost more than ever. The average new car in America now sells for over $48,000 according to Kelley Blue Book's market analysis. That's not a luxury model, that's just average. And about 80% of buyers don't pay cash, they finance. Loans that used to be 4 or 5 years are now routinely stretched to 6 or even 7 years, 72 to 84 months of payments. But here's the thing, losing money is actually the least alarming part of this story. Most people still don't realize this, but modern cars are some of the most intrusive data harvesting devices the public has ever been sold. A massive 2023 report by the Mozilla Foundation concluded that cars are now the worst product category we have ever reviewed in terms of privacy. Not phones, not smart speakers, not social media, cars. Today's vehicles are basically surveillance systems on wheels. Your car can record your precise GPS location, where you go, how long you stay, and how often you come back. It logs your driving behavior, how fast you accelerate, how hard you brake, whether you speed, whether you corner aggressively, what times of day you usually drive, and how often you commute. From this, it can infer where you live, where you work, what schools your kids go to, and what places you regularly visit. Some models don't stop there. They also collect biometric and in-cabin data. That might include your voice through microphones used for voice commands, or your face through driver monitoring cameras that were technically added for safety or convenience. According to the Mozilla investigation and a separate analysis by the Washington Post, 84% of car makers openly admit they share or sell this driver data to third parties, including advertisers, data brokers, and insurance companies. So your car isn't just tracking you, it's turning your daily life into a product. You are being packaged, analyzed, and sold by a vehicle you paid tens of thousands of dollars to own. Next came the control. Around 2015, manufacturers started heavily promoting over-the-air software updates as the future of car ownership. Companies like Tesla, Ford, BMW, and GM praised the idea that your car could get better over time. No more waiting years for a new model. Your current car could download updates, add features, fix bugs, and improve performance while you sleep. And to be fair, that does sound convenient. If your phone can update itself, why shouldn't your car? But hidden inside that convenience is a fundamental shift in power. Because once your car becomes a software platform, it stops being a fixed mechanical product that you fully control and becomes a connected device that someone else can change whenever they want. Over-the-air updates give manufacturers a level of ongoing control they've never had before in the history of car ownership. They can enable or disable features remotely. They can push down new restrictions. They can change how your car behaves, how fast certain things respond, what settings are available, and whether your favorite features work the way they did yesterday. They can lock repairs and diagnostics behind dealership authorization. In some cases, they can even revoke access to certain functionalities after a disagreement, a missed payment, or a policy change you didn't know happened. And that opens the door for something even more direct, remote control over whether your car works at all. In addition, law enforcement agencies, in some cases, also have access to remote shutdown capabilities or location data, either directly through automakers or through onboard telematics systems. Meanwhile, as infrastructure becomes more connected, some cities and states are exploring ideas like mandatory speed limiters, geofence no-drive zones, and automated compliance systems. These ideas show up in policy conversations and proposals from bodies like the National Transportation Safety Board and the Department of Transportation, usually wrapped in the language of safety modernization or smart mobility. The pitch always sounds reasonable: reduce crashes, enforce speed limits, keep dangerous drivers off the road. But once the technology exists to control your car from a distance, the real question is no longer can we do this? It becomes who gets to decide how and when this gets used. And that brings us to one of the strangest developments in modern car economics: subscriptions. In the past, you bought a car, you paid for the features you wanted up front, and that was it. If the car had heated seats, they were yours. If it had fancy headlights, they were yours. But now automakers are experimenting with selling you the hardware but renting you the functionality. There are real examples already in the market. BMW has experimented with charging monthly fees to unlock heated seats in some regions. Toyota has tied remote start to a subscription app. Mercedes has offered extra horsepower as a paid software unlock. Audi has sold advanced headlight functions that are physically installed on the car but locked behind an additional payment. This model is not new. Printers did it with ink cartridges, phones did it with chargers and accessories, software companies did it with apps and cloud services. What's new is that this logic is now invading one of the most essential, most expensive tools people own: their car. Cars used to be machines, now they are platforms, and platforms are designed to be monetized, controlled, and updated, not necessarily owned in the old-fashioned sense. Here's where things get serious. You might be thinking, fine, I'll just stick to older cars, no subscriptions, no kill switches, no creepy data collection. But around the world, governments and large institutions are slowly making that harder too. Many cities are moving toward phasing out older vehicles, especially those without modern emission systems or telematics. Cities like Los Angeles have floated various congestion and emissions-based restrictions that would, in practice, make it harder for older, simpler vehicles to operate freely in certain areas. At the same time, insurance companies are increasingly pushing telematics as the default. Sign up for a safe driver discount, plug in a little dongle, or enable a smartphone app or inbuilt tracker, and your insurer monitors your driving habits in real time. The framing is always positive. If you're a good driver, you will save money. But once that model becomes widespread, there's a second stage. If monitored connected drivers get cheaper rates, what happens to the people who prefer not to be tracked? Over time, they can be labeled higher risk simply because they are not feeding data into the system. Their premiums go up. Eventually, unmonitored could become a synonym for uninsurable at a normal price. So the fear that older, unconnected cars will eventually become impractical to own isn't just paranoia. It's a logical extension of the incentives already on the table. If older cars are regulated out of city centers, taxed heavily, denied affordable insurance, and starved of parts and support, they might still technically exist, but only as toys for collectors, not as practical daily tools for normal people. So how did we get here? How did we go from a culture that valued mechanical freedom, DIY repairs, and my car, my rules, to a culture that quietly accepts digital control, remote shutdowns, and subscription seats? The answer is simple. And it's the same story we've seen with phones, computers, smart homes, and social media. Every new restriction is sold as a convenience. Convenience is the oldest trick in the book when it comes to getting people to surrender autonomy. It starts as, let us help you. It slowly becomes, this is the easiest way. Then, this is the normal way. And eventually, for a lot of people, it turns into, you can no longer do this yourself. So the next time someone asks why you still drive an old car or why you're not rushing to trade in for the latest connected model, the answer might be simple. Older cars belong to you. Newer cars, more and more, belong to someone else. If this changed the way you see modern cars, let me know by hitting like and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.